Good afternoon, everybody.
I saw this.
Very happy to see you all here. It's a nice audience. As seen, they have some big trees and a lot of work. We will not wait until 1 to start, but we start now. Usually I do the introduction from the artist, but these people are so well known all over the world, it's absolutely not necessary. But anyway, this is Ryan Neal from the United States. Koji Hiramatsu, Japan. This small guy over there is Mauro Stemberger. I suppose some of you were already here yesterday? Yeah. Okay. So I will make it short. Enjoy your afternoon. Learn as much as possible, because you can enjoy and you can learn here, and that's important. And already now for next year, don't forget to come again. Okay, we are already preparing the trophy for 26 now already, because we want to do it even better than this year. So thank you very much.
Jump in as well. Yellow, I am going to be moderating this session and trying to get your attention to the trees and the trees to you. If you have any questions at some point, let me know. Raise your hand. We can do it in multiple languages and I'll repeat the question and translate also for the artists. But for now, I think it is interesting to hear from every single artist what they are planning on doing with their trees this afternoon for you. So maybe we can start with Koji.
Yes, okay.
Could you please explain what's your plan today?
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So, I'm Koji from Japan. So today I'm going to work on with this Taxus. This one actually from my nursery. So I'm very happy to work on my trees. This is maybe the age of this tree is 60, 70 years old. So this time, this Genk already carving by Barbosa. So this Taxus already has a nice Deadwood. So this time I want to show this incredible, amazing Deadwood. So that's why I want to change angle a little bit to show this amazing Deadwood like this. It's okay. So it's okay. I check. Perfect. So this angle, I think this angle is the best angle to show this Deadwood. So then today I have two big assistants. He's Luca Tamburello, you know, maybe you know that. I think he's one of the top bonsai artists in Europe. So this guy, he is Manuel. He is apprentice of Mr. Suzuki. So next year he also assistant with Mr. Shinji Suzuki. And one more guy, big guy, is my big brother Jerry. So he's passionate. So anyway, please enjoy the show. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to let Ryan clean a little bit, and before we go there, we go to Mauro and ask Mauro, what are you planning with this small tree that you have here? Where did it come from?
So, hello everyone. So, today I'm here with Christian, Rudy and Mirko. Rudy was helping me yesterday, and today we had another two good students helping on this work. This is a Mugo pine that actually I collected in the Dolomites 7 or 8 years ago. I still remember the day I discovered the place where this Mugo was growing. It was a rock avalanche, and this Mugo actually was with this face growing against a rock. That's why you see all this beautiful movement, basically compressing, because every here the pile of snow was pushing on the tree, and the tree got this fantastic movement, holding his weight against the rock. So we collect the tree, I grow the tree in my place for some years, and then I start removing the original soil. The process on Mugo is a little bit slower than the process on Scots pine that I explained yesterday, because generally these Mugos come from very high elevation, 2,600 meter above sea level. So when we transition the tree in a lower elevation, there is a little bit of a stress for the tree. It's too hot, the humidity change and everything, so they need a longer time to recover. That's why so far in 7-8 years I only transition the tree into a bonsai pot with good bonsai soil, and I just take care of getting the tree stronger. You can see on the Mugo the signal that the tree is stronger is when it starts creating these clusters of green. It's different from the Scots when we have the three apical buds. That's the signal of the Scots. On Mugo, when we start having this pom-pom, means the tree is telling you, I'm ready. Working on a Mugo is not as the same working on a Scots. I cannot do something like that. I did yesterday, a lot of bending, a lot of wiring. On this Mugo, basically, there will be only a pushing down of this section behind. I want to try to hide this. That is a little bit conflicting with the beautiful and very twisty movement of the trunk. I want to hide that. That will allow me to have this section as an apex more in this area. Bring some green to frame every curve of the trunk, and then try to use this branch out in this position, and I will see later on in the demo if I want to add some angle to the tree to increase the drama of this gene and shari going towards the right side. So along the demo, I will, after the bending, I will decide if I want to give a little bit of angle. The work of today will be different because I will start with the bending, will be a free bending without any raffia, just working with the flexibility of the branch and observing the reaction of the branch while we start tensioning the guy wire. There will be a guy wire here going back and another one here going forward. So we need to create three-dimensionality with the green on a trunk that is most of all d-dimensional. So the three-dimensionality we're going to create using the green, and also changing a little bit the front of the tree. Do not have all the movement parallel to the eyes of the observer. Doing that, we can create a tree with a very good value. Thank you.
Meanwhile, here in the middle, a lot of work has happened already. Half of the branches seem to have fallen. I do hope they realize we have a few hours, so this doesn't have to be done very quickly. Yesterday they also finished very quickly, working at high speed. Ryan, do you have a minute to share what you're going to do with this?
Yeah.
Maybe you know a bit about the history, where did it come from?
Oof, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, how's everybody doing? Sunday feels like the Saturday night. We had like a midnight awards banquet last night. Some of you were there, some of you were not. Maybe you got in bed earlier than anybody at the banquet did. But I always feel like Saturday we're all like, you know, and it's like all this energy and everybody's here, and then Sunday people come like staggering into the demos and like it's dark and warm and half of us fall asleep. And so anyways, I won't hold it against you, but I'm in a little bit of the same boat. But today I've got quite a bit more complicated piece of material. I love Sabina. I think Sabina is the best species of juniper on the planet if there wasn't another juniper called Rocky Mountain juniper. But they're close, right? They're close. Okay, it's regional loyalty, you know what I'm saying? I have to do that. It's like I was born in Denver, Colorado, and I have to root for the Denver Broncos, whether I want to or not. It's just an obligation, right? There we go. Broncos fan. I believe this was part of Danny's private collection from what I understood. So he's trusting me with his tree material, and if you guys know Danny, then he says, I'm trusting you with my tree. And you don't know whether that's threatening or that's welcoming, you know, like, so anyways, I will responsibly try to improve this tree, but one of the things about Sabina is the complexity. One of the things about Sabina is the complexity of the structure, the complexity of the deadwood, and sometimes, as much as we love all of that complexity, it's a little bit too much. So before you guys came in here today, I was just kind of playing with potential, angles, and I started to, and let me just see where we want to be from here. And then I started thinking, okay, that feels really good, but notice how everything's kind of engaging you. Can I see a little bit more? So I'm going to come back towards you. No, I'm going to come back towards you. Hang on 1 second, because this is going to get kind of funky, I know, and that's because of the, okay. So I'm going to pick up, oh no, that face is staying. Okay. Yeah, good, okay, let's see how, huh? Is it?
Okay.
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 It's okay, just a second. It's barely on the table, right? And all of a sudden you can kind of see into it. You see that? So we like tilt it over. I'll talk about why in terms of the lines, but then we need to bring it back, and all of a sudden I have a point of diminishing return. So one of the things I'm focused on is getting this space right here. Capturing, whenever you have all of this deadwood, whenever you have all of these trunk lines, you've got to start to see the space between all of those pieces so that you can appreciate those lines, because otherwise it's just like a lot of busy things happening. So capturing this line is of priority, capturing this line and this space down here is of priority. So when I brought it down, we started to give flow, we started to give movement, we started to create asymmetry like I talked about yesterday to show an older tree, but when we bring it up, I start to see those spaces, okay? So in this model of this tree, these pieces over here that have a lot of deadwood attached to them are the pieces that allow me to start to create elevations within the tree itself, because it's very sort of blocky and unified and homogeneous in terms of the positive negative space through the canopy, which obviously, you know, even wiring this down, it's like, okay, well now here's positive, here's negative, here's positive again, but I want bigger spaces. More negative space equals an older aesthetic to the tree, and so if I start to bring these pieces actually down out of this deadwood, I'm going to start to create viewing windows in here that are going to show you all of that fantastical twist and contortion. This is all about framing the best areas of the tree with the foliar mass, okay? So I'm going to start off getting a few complicated pieces of rebar set up to be able to pull some of these structural branches that have a lot of deadwood on them. There's going to be some raffia, there's going to be a lot of guy wires, and then we'll be able to start to organize some of this deadwood in this region here and bring the foliar mass and the upper canopy down into those spaces. But this is going to be a fun day. I think we do get to rock and roll today. It's one of those days, okay? Off we go.
What it is favorable for you to work with, kind of really good. I just don't have any steel wire, right? It's just copper. I have a steel. Just so I can put it on.
No, very short. Ah, yeah. So that's why. Short, very short.
Just in case, if you were wondering what we were doing, of course we don't want the pot to topple over. So Ryan just put a few wires around the pot and the table, but still we're a little bit concerned about the table itself. We have a very high center of gravity, so it's going to be interesting when he starts doing the big bends. We need to really make sure it doesn't topple over. That's why it's hiding behind the table. Not only because I'm scared. Now part of the fun of being here is of course that you have the ability to ask questions about the work being done and about how these artists take care of their tree. Are there any questions already in the room? Had jij nog zo'n vraag en is er iemand die misschien wat wil vragen? Well, if at some point you do, raise your hand, give a shout. It's a little bit difficult to look into the room for us. We have big spotlights on us, so you might have to shout a little bit. Don't just see a hand in the room.
So I already start putting a couple of guide wire. You can see already this section that was horizontal over the curve that is slowly disappearing in the back in order to highlight the frontal part and not have a conflict of lines. And now I already put a piece of guide wire to push slowly the apex forward. This part is a little bit tricky, so I will be observing during the demo the reaction of the fiber to the push and eventually interact with some raffia if it's necessary. When I bend thick branches and I feel there is enough flexibility, I like to do what I call open bend. So I don't put raffia straight away, but I observe the fibers while I bend, and just in case I see some cracking, some, disjunction on the fibers, then I eventually put the raffia. Or eventually, sometimes we need to carve and everything. On Mugo it's a little bit tricky because we have always, on very old tree, a lot, even in the branches, a lot of parts hiding, that part hiding behind the bark, where the tree lost branches. And what Mugo does, as soon as the branch dies, you can see here, all the correspondent live line die back. This is more evident in the older part of the trunk, but is present also in branches. So when we bend, we have to observe the branches very well, because the dead part is not able to move the tension along the fibers because the fibers are dead, differently from the living part. The problem is, if you bend the branch, there is a shari, and the fibers that fiber start holding tension, we reach a breaking point, and that break can move from the dead fibers to the living fibers, and obviously the branch is gone. It's always on Mugo important. I like to do this type of work because I like to observe the reaction of the fiber when I move the different structural part and even the small branches. So I don't jump on the raffia straight away, but it's a little bit of a different strategy from what we did yesterday. Okay? Any question? Perfect.
I have a question. How do you share your images with your team that you all work together and make the same images?
So, as I said yesterday, there is a very clear final image in my head. I explain the strategy of the work demo between the demo, but they know how to follow my guideline. And my guidelines are, probably you notice, I put all, as I did yesterday, all the pieces of the structural wire, because I know the direction I will be moving the branches. For example, this guy will come here, so the wire is counterclockwise. These guys come here, so the wire is clockwise. So I match branches 2 by 2 according to the direction. I always want the branch, while I bend the wire, to tie to the branch. And that I can do myself. I don't need to explain. It's faster if I do it. And after that, you can see everyone take one section of the tree, and with the technique I already teach them in many years working together, they clean and fast wire everything out, and at the end we start padding out the tree. Thank you.
Now here the Taxus is changing shape very, very fast.
Yes.
Koji, maybe you can explain a little bit more about your vision for the tree now that half of the foliage have fallen?
Oh, okay. I have already cut some branches. Actually, this is first branches. This branch is second branch, and this is apex. Other one is back branches. So it's very simple. Okay, my vision is how can I say? Not only this side is not uprighting style, it's slanting style something. So the point is just making the nice path. Normally when we design the tree, so that we make the path. Basically, we had made to make the many paths to create even the these first branches. We should make the not only one part. So many parts looks nice. So it's one of the technique to make the part make the branches or part.
So if I understand you
Many
correctly,
layers.
you break it up in multiple layers, right?
Okay.
Are there any questions about what's happening to the U at the moment? Yeah.
was taking some branches on the right. Is that because otherwise it would be put down in the Deadwood, and that's why it's taking.
Why you remove them?
So Koji, some branches on the right-hand side were removed. And the question is, why were these removed? Is that because they start interfering with the dead parts, or could you explain a little bit your thinking on removing these branches on the right-hand side?
I see. This side, right side.
Yeah.
So I think most important to design the trees. I have already told you. I want to show this. I want to focus on this Deadwood. So that's why. So this tree don't need to the branches right side. only make this size, then this we can show such a nice Deadwood. So we have to make the trees. We have to looking for the nice, how can I say, focus point. It's amazing point. That's why I remove the right side branches.
So you do like the Deadwood a lot, and that should be in view, and then you remove all the branches on the right, and let the tree move to your left.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Maybe follow-up questions? No? Yeah.
Mauro, how do you find these trees? It's really high, that lot. Because you have a team and such for it. And how do you get
Now, Mauro, the question is, can you please give us the GPS that you send out in the Dolomites to find those trees? Now, how do you go about it?
What's the limit, the daily limit of your credit card?
Now, basically, the question is, what is the process? Do you walk so much? Do you have a whole team of people out there, or you just know where to find them?
I live in the middle of the Dolomites, okay? I live 1 hour and a half from the highest part of the Dolomites. So since I was a child, even before starting with bonsai, my father bring me in the mountain with my mom. So the day I start with bonsai, and someone actually, my bonsai master kind of clicked me on the Yamadori thing and say, "Hey stupid, you live in the middle of the Dolomites, go there and look for this material." I said, "Oh my God, I see that material all the time." When we was hiking, I still remember I was like 10, 12. On a hike, there was always a big sembra pine on top of a rock that I was crossing with my father. And we always stopped just admiring the tree. And it was like almost a bonsai itself. So I knew the places. And then, you know, I started when I was probably 14 bonsai, but then I started going in the mountain when I was like 18, 17. And along like now 30 years, I know every single spot in the Dolomites. So it depends. I have probably 20, 30 trees like these, only just waiting there. I don't want to collect all of them once because when you start the process of transforming the tree into a bonsai, it's a commitment. You don't style the tree and then forget. So I cannot start 50, 30 Mugos. So for me, it doesn't make sense to collect them. So while I go every year, I bring home 2 or 3, and then I start the process. But for me, knowing the mountain is pretty simple to find material like this. You have to walk, and sometimes you have to carry these trees for a long time. My friends here, my students know, we are pretty crazy. Sometimes we carry 100 kilo Mugo down for like 2-3 hours, but it's worth the reward when you have the trees in the garden and you look at the trees and the illusion of transforming into a beautiful piece of art that maybe in 10 years, 15 years, I can show here at the trophy. That's always my goal. I do bonsai for this. That's my main addiction. Find good material in the mountain and transform into a beautiful bonsai.
10 years to the trophy. Is that the realistic number from the moment that you go out in the
So,
mountain? How long does it take?
For my experience, and also making this comparison between Scots and Mugo, Mugo is much slower. I will say, in a perfect world, starting today from the raw material, I can make a show-ready Scots pine in 10 years. 10 years is a pretty good number. And for a Mugo, if everything goes well, it will be 15 years. Mugo is a little bit much slower. You need to give more time to the tree to recover from one intervention to another. And sometimes I feel, I have to wait 5, 6, 7 years before touching the tree. but especially on Mugo, that make the next part of the story much faster. I tried to shorten the time in the beginning, and don't work out. I need to build up green and strength in order then to slow down the tree to the final moment. But if I don't have the tree at its best of the capacity, it's like an athlete. You need to reach the day of the game or the day of the whatever in the best of his performance thing. And the bonsai is the same. We are like trainers in the gym. So we have to know our athlete and be able to help him go into the final goal.
Excellent explanation. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to go over and reiterate, this tree is really all about the deadwood. And it was quite over lush just to gain a lot of health in the tree so this can be done. So he's after a very sparse look. When somebody views the tree, this is the focus. And this will just be the sideshow almost. But he wants it very thin so you feel the struggle on a mountain. The tree is not full and lush on the mountain. But he really wants this to only be the highlight of the tree. So very thin on the branches.
So how much of a needle plucking is going to happen then in this? Or are you going to take most of the needles on the right now?
Most of the needles will stay on. He'll do a little bit, but he's going to remove more branches. I think because he's going to leave too many up here until he gets this all set, because then once this is set, he's going to know where to go with this. And then he'll decide to remove 1 or 4 more large branches. But I think you're going to see this get a lot smaller.
Thanks for the addition. Still looking at the audience, whether there are any hands come up? Otherwise I'm going to bother Ryan for a second, asking how it's going. So I see that you have to put the tension wire here on the lower branch. Start tightening it. What's the plan?
Okay, everybody probably heard the crack, which was not actually living tissue, it was dead tissue. My son in the front row goes, "Oh, Dad."
No, certainly.
Yeah. "Oh, you did it again." Hanging out in the workshop with Dad, he's breaking branches. So, anytime that you're bending juniper in general, there's always this live dead interaction that we start talking about, right? And as long as you're working in parallel with the living tissue, you know, you can take the living tissue and you can roll it and put the stress onto the deadwood in the different directions of the grain of the deadwood. So I'm just gonna swing this around for you here and kind of show you what that tear that you heard is actually the deadwood right here, the very rigid deadwood breaking. And then the live vein, that live vein, it doesn't want to tear. It's very malleable, it's very stretchy, it's very woven together with pectins, which is a natural kind of cement that binds your vascular tubes of your water, xylem, and primarily water and xylem, because your cambium and phloem are very thin on junipers and typically very thin on most trees. The core of the vascular system is water transport through the middle of the tree. So when you have all of that structure and that deadwood gives, you can see it's a little shaky here, so I just supported it here and I'll tie this off here so that it's down. But ultimately I said, my motivation in this is to start to get this piece down so that I have the space, and now you're starting to see the space through here. Now, I don't think I need this whole piece here. I didn't want to make this determination, but I don't want this to take on some sort of like blocky kind of bottom branch. And there's a possibility, I'm not quite sure yet, I will know once I move this, we might not need this period, because when you start to form flow inside of a tree, this piece right here being the lowest, which the lowest doesn't mean it's got to be the defining branch, but in terms of this tree being a cascade, semi-cascading form, this should be the defining branch. And when you think about this being the defining branch, one of the ways that you nullify flow or you nullify asymmetry is you push this piece out and then you pull it back in. So I'm not super happy necessarily with this piece coming all the way back in, but I don't know that I want to continue pushing out here. And again, a lot of that's going to be answered by how this kind of compresses and slims down in terms of this large spread up in this area, which there are a number of split branches and live dead interactions up in here, so there's going to be more splitting and tearing and dad. But we're going to work through it as we kind of shrink down the globular nature of this canopy into more of a canopy that has some momentum, has some movement, has some out into the depth and back out again. One of the most important areas in the tree is right here. And it's important because that's what gets me to the back of the tree, and that's what starts to create more of a three-dimensional image in terms of the tree and the shape that I'm creating. So for now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave that. We have enough information to be able to move into this space. The potential to swing this piece out into here, especially with the large base that I have on the tree to support that big push in this direction, is very much something I'm thinking about. But I'm going to move on to this area which already has a preformed kind of crack and separation in it. We're going to see how far we can push it, but we're just going to buffer that because, again, this starts to become one of these mega areas for depth in the design, but I've got a lot of kind of juniper sauce and mojo that I got to deal with here, which is to solidify that live and dead and see if I can control that bend.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. There's one question that's on everybody's mind. This work that you do.
That's great. These are both 5? These are both 5? Yeah. You might want to get that tomorrow. Mauro, you need 5 millimeter?
I'm done.
Oh, you're good? Okay, cool. Great, thanks.
You do all this work?
Yeah.
How long does it take for these branches to set it under review?
Well, on the one where the Deadwood split, this one, we would have to create some artificial structures for that. That'll never fully set. That'll always be a susceptible branch, which does weigh in on do we go ahead and just take it off? And if we're going to take off a piece like this is a major live vein. That live vein moves up into here. Notice the motion that has through the live dead interaction. This smaller piece kind of moves up on the underside and through the back. So we would lose a lot of live dead interaction if I did shed this piece, which does motivate me to potentially just take off this kind of heavier piece here, leave these smaller pieces as an accent through that area. But you've always got to be thinking about every facet of what happens if I remove something on a juniper, because the vein interaction with the deadwood and the direct contact of foliage here to root there along this living tissue means that if this disappears, does that benefit or does that take away from the overall aesthetic of the tree? If you're not thinking that far in advance of what you're losing on a trunk vein sort of conceptual basis, then you're not thinking hard enough about a juniper. They do demand kind of seeing into the future and the perpetuation of a decision here and how it impacts all of this here. So this is valuable to me, and I do imagine we probably will need to keep this piece, which means we probably need to conceptualize how to stabilize this a little bit more here. A little tomfoolery and some cosmetic magic, and this could be very, very stable and you would never see it. We'll see if we get to that today though.
Thanks, and then you told me this is a complex tree with a lot of wiring to be done. I'll try to keep you quiet for a little bit.
Yeah, well, so you don't have to be quiet, but I do need to get busy, yeah.
Is there anybody in the audience who has a question? Kids vragen, zijn er vragen? Of preguntas? No? It's interesting to see how Mauro becomes his own paparazzi, following along what he's doing. What was at the moment the important step that you wanted to record?
So, basically finish bending the thick branch in the back. Now I already pushed down what will be part of my apex to go inside of this area and be a nice green connection between these two focal points. As soon as some of the lower branches will be wired, I will start playing with the angle to increase the dynamism of the overall composition. It's very vertical now, so I need to tilt either way actually, or left or right. I'm thinking right because most of these beautiful elbows tend to insist in this direction. So I feel that if I can tilt the tree to the right and bring this branch here, I could create a very strong visual dynamism that will help increase the value of all the curving and the interaction between Deadwood and Liveline on the overall tree. Obviously, more I twist, more I need to try to push the apex inside of that space. And as you can see, I already start playing with this branch, putting a piece of wire clockwise, because this branch I would love to kind of follow the flow in front, also creating kind of a breaking point between all the movement of this big wave. I need some green in the front that will also connect the left part of the frame with the right part of the frame. It's always very important. Otherwise, the trunk is too much exposed. I want to create this kind of hide and see situation.
Thanks very much.
I'm very quiet.
Aren't you always?
No, not really.
Now this is one of those phases of the demonstration where there's a lot of things happening on stage at the same time, but mostly it is a lot of wire being applied so that the tree can be styled later on. We realized yesterday that we can have very, very long conversations, but that also means that then the work slows down a little bit. So I do wish to let these guys work a little bit, but if you do have questions and you're like, hey, I don't understand what's going on, or could you please point the camera at what's happening here or happening there? That's also a valid question. We have multiple cameras here, so we can use a detailed view on any of the trees. So please let me know if you're interested in what's happening on one or the other tree.
Oh, that's position.
I've just been asked to explain a little bit about what's happening here with the U tree. Koji mentioned earlier already is that he's going to try to create multiple layers out of one branch. Basically what he does is he takes the main branch and pulls that quite steep, and then the side branches are lifted up a little bit so it looks like there are multiple steps, even though it's just one branch falling down. And together that will form one foliage mass that will consist of multiple layers. Also when the tree is finally styled and grown out, they will keep those different layers in there, creating depth and increasing the view of elevation in the tree itself. So that's a nice technique also if you're working on your trees at home. If you have one branch, it doesn't have to be one foliage branch. You can lift branches from it or drop branches down from it, and that way create multiple layers. That might be something to watch for as you continue styling the tree, and also once it's done, the tree will go outside, you can look at it, you can see how he has created multiple layers out of one branch, and with that create more dynamic view and leveling in the tree. very happy to see that Ryan is also struggling a little bit with the thicker copper wire on these very twisty, close corner branches. I always feel a little bit clumsy when I work on trees like this myself, but it's nice to see that it is not obvious and a quick and easy job for a well-trained professional like Ryan.
Yeah, no, you gotta be careful. I mean, the hardest part of junipers, when you're working on junipers, is that you have these rigid cores of deadwood, right? And sabina, most of the time there might be more deadwood than living tissue in any one singular branch. So now all of a sudden you're having to look at how the live dead interacts. You know that the dead's going to be very, very brittle. Where these come from, although I believe the Spanish sabinas come from a slight degree of elevation and are more mountainous, sabina can grow down along the coast as well. There that goes. So I'm just playing the game of a little bit heavier guy wire on the tree so that the guy wire can impose a little bit more force on the bend of the branch without me having to pull the branch. So it's actually, by using a gauge or two higher guy wire than I typically would, literally the force of the two wires kind of pulling on each other when I twist is actually what's bending the branch, because it's already split and so sensitive here that if I just reef on this thing, I'm probably going to rip it right off. But just that like subtle, quarter twist at a time, and it just kind of really beautifully tightens and bends. And I've shored it up with the raffia. The raffia, all it's doing is just holding it from completely falling apart. Now this area will stabilize because we still have all of the parts of the puzzle together. Whereas this other one, the deadwood fully went, now the stress is on the live vein. We'll have to do something to shore that up. But even this branch up here that I'm wiring has very, very minimal living tissue on the physical branch itself, and there's a lot of deadwood in here, and I've already separated the live vein from the deadwood, lifting it up a little bit and rotating it, which in that separation gives me the ability to just drop this down while it's still attached to the deadwood, instead of separating it from the deadwood like we would have to do if it was a little bit harder, more structured wood, right? Sabina wood is almost like, it's dry, it's kind of crackly, it's fragmented, it's not this rock hard, almost like petrified wood like we have on Rocky Mountain juniper in the United States. And so the Sabina lets you get away with a few more tricks to keep the deadwood attached to the living tissue.
I invite you all to keep close eye on Ryan's hands when he's working on tension wires. Yesterday he explained in full length how the use of pliers is really important in Japanese bonsai styling. During his training there was a strong focus on being able to use one hand to use your pliers with tension and the other hand to manipulate the tree. And in fact it is quite a feat if you manipulate the tree with one hand and the other hand you're actually tightening the tension wire in the bottom as well. I just saw him doing it just before. I'm sure he's going to do it again later on. Just watch what he's doing with his hands. It's nice to see those sort of skills materialize as well as you watch a demo. I must say we have a very quiet audience today. Yesterday by this time we already had about 50 questions fired from the audience. Everything's clear what's happening, or you're just intimidated with people on the stage and you don't really want to ask questions to them? Then you can just ask me the question and I'll pose it to them. So don't worry.
Yes?
How do they compare the Taxus branches for wiring?
What?
How do you
The
compare
question-
Taxus for wiring? Is there a special way how you compare it before you apply the wire?
Okay.
I'm just going to quickly repeat for the rest of the audience. The question is, how do you prepare the Taxus, the U branches for wiring? What do you do as a process beforehand?
I'm going to. So, camera. Okay. So this is the Taxus branches. So normally we should remove this is old foliage. Okay. So before you wiring, so you should remove this foliage, brown part. So then maybe this spring you can have the back button here. So that's why. So before wiring, you should basically you should remove all the foliage like this. So then you can wire very easily. No. Makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
To be clear, he meant that you're removing all the foliage only on the brown part of the branch.
Thank you. Your English is good.
Thank you.
You want to explain a little bit more about the backcutting on the U and the consequence of removing needles? One of the effects that you have if you remove those inner needles, U is very good at backcutting, but it particularly backcuts well if there's no needles on the brown segment of the branch. So if you leave all the needles on, backcutting is way less than when you remove those inner needles, which might be in contrast to some other species where it's actually beneficial to leave needles on. With the U, you leave the end screen and the inside therefore will start backcutting much more strongly. So that's one of the benefits of also cleaning it up as you're wiring it out. And helps you style the tree later on because you have more inner green.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the best time to pluck the needles off of the Jew in the year?
Yes. Actually,
the question is what is the best time in the year to pluck the needles on you?
So you should remove the old foliage before spring, before March. Because after March it starts growing season, so you should remove before spring. Before.
Okay.
Okay.
The backcutting for pines, is that different than for the U?
Pine tree?
Yeah, the question is whether a pine has a different method in backcutting and you stimulate backcutting differently than what you would do for a U.
I see. Black pine tree. So budding of a black pine is different. So normally black pine we decandle in June. But so if you want to have the back budding maybe 1 year before you don't decandling, so let its branches grow, then cut next year you should cut the middle of branches. I need to whiteboard something.
Oh, whiteboard.
No.
I'm sorry, we don't have a whiteboard here.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have the pine trees. I just looking for the.
He's going to charge you for that.
These are branches.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mugo, I think because I don't have the Mugo in Japan, so Mauro, Mugo is
Single flash.
Single flash.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, you can get eventually a double flash alone without any manipulation, so any pruning, if the tree is super strong. It happened in my garden, some of my very strong Mugo, at the end of summer, they have another flash of needle from the base of the bud. But it's not considered a double flash. If you prune as you do the Makiri on Japanese black or Japanese red, they don't produce another flash, they only produce another bud like Scotsman.
Okay. So you have black pine. Yes. So if you this is Mugo, but so if you expect budding, so you should cut the middle of the branches. You should keep the side branches. You should not the bud, not the end, middle of branches like this. You should keep the needle, or the needles. Then maybe you can have the back button. So normally I do this in May. Okay. But so you need to make the tree very strong. If the tree is weak, so we cannot expect back button. So you should make the tree strong, then you can do this. Okay.
Maybe something from that, that's for Japanese black pine.
Yeah, especially Japanese black pine.
The cutting back like this in our region does require quite a good summer to have golden responses. So in a rainy summer like last year, you can have a very weak response. So don't do it every single year. Just do it once, make sure the tree is really strong, and then you can consider doing it again. But it is a little bit more difficult in this part of the world because we don't get the hot, sunny summers every year.
So please come to my place. I'm going to show you.
So that was an open invite to come and work at his place for a little bit.
So you can see we start pushing. We already increase a little bit the angle of the tree. There is a nice flow to the right. So basically the idea is compact the left side where Christian is working. We put a couple of guy wire. Now the green is already almost under that beautiful curve. And then the side where Rudy is working and where we have this beautiful gene and this other twist with the shari, I'm insisting I will try to basically elongate the movement to increase the dynamism. I need the flow. I cannot build a compact tree only around this trunk, otherwise they will not match. The green visually will not match with the trunk. So it will be more open and away into the right side and more compact into the left side.
I have a question. For my dad, why can't you put the branch that is holding the deadwood on another branch to release the tension?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Now I'm going to quickly repeat the question. There was a question to Ryan from the Sun, why Dad doesn't just make a simple solution and connect the weak branch to Deadwood that's already there. I think I understood. Ryan, you can probably better explain the question.
Go ahead, ask again.
So I said, why couldn't you maybe put the weak branch on another branch to release the tension on the live branch?
So like connect it to another branch so that the other branch holds it up?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really good idea. The problem here, right, so where I'm at in the design, you notice I took off stuff that's coming to the left. I'm shedding some of the stuff that's coming into the canopy here on the left. I did kind of commit to start to push this out to the left. Excuse me, I took off stuff on the right, I took off stuff on the right, I'm pushing stuff to the left. So this piece doesn't necessarily, you can kind of see the live pane right there, which is separate from the deadwood, and just hold it right there, see how that's moving? Because it broke off of this ridge, you can actually just kind of see the ridge in the shadow right there. where that's split off of, and now that whole live vein wants to come off of that deadwood, because this is now a separate entity. This living tissue right here is a separate entity from this deadwood that's just bound by, like I started talking about initially, that natural concrete that binds the vascular bundles together. It's called pectin. So as I continue to work here, I'll be able to stabilize this here for sure, right? But because I have nothing else around it, I can't hide this maybe crossing over a piece of deadwood and stabilizing it. So I'm gonna have to find something at the base to accomplish that. But as I'm kind of looking up in here, this is where some of that busyness is happening, and although it's all very fantastical, whenever you design a tree, you have to see its connection to the ground, period. It's a non-negotiable. It doesn't mean you have to look right at a specific angle of it connecting to the ground, but you have to see where the roots enter the soil. And as long as all of this is kind of front and center, it's keeping us from seeing the connection, which is a very strong connection that gives us the ability to move asymmetrically in this direction. So I am gonna come back and start to simplify this, but I'm pulling a lot of this stuff down to start to change the shape of this up here and identify my apical region. I've got kind of a major central mass here. I have a gigantic, an absolutely gigantic piece of foliage here that carries, you know, probably 10% of the foliage on the tree, and it's joining this very complicated live vein like a book that's kind of folded together. And I'm already kind of looking at this and saying, okay, do I need both of these? Do I need one of these? Do I split those down the middle and kind of open them up and splay them open a little bit like a carcass or something? And then do I lay these down as the apex? I'm just kind of working through all of the potential design solutions, but I feel like this is the next kind of, okay, Ryan, you do have to reconcile this in order to move forward on this tree. Step by step, I'm attacking each individual branch. Every single one of them has split or cracked somewhere in the deadwood to this point. Character of the tree, right? Nature of the tree, nature of the vascular structure, nature of the growth habit of this particular tree, wherever it was occurring inside of the environment. Every tree has a little bit of a different character, right? Some trees are more flexible, some trees have harder deadwood, some trees have finer foliage, some trees are more brittle, some trees are coarser, some trees have deadwood that doesn't have that same structural integrity, and so this is one that's making us work a little bit. But these challenges inside of styling a bonsai, this is what it's all about, right? Can you adapt to the conditions of the tree that you're working on? As you put your hands in it, you start to become more informed. Can you adapt? And this is going to break too. There it is. That's my guy. Can you adapt to the conditions to be able to actualize the best aesthetic within what the tree's limitations are, right? So I'm going to keep working here, but thanks for asking that question, bud.
Well, you can actually keep the microphone, because now that you brought the family in, I know that Ryan is a little bit open about. Now I have a question to actually the family, because I am very curious. Ryan is a hardworking guy, he works on bonsai, I hear, to 16, 17 hours a day. What's that like? I'm just asking the question that half of the audience wants to know and doesn't dare to ask, I'm sure. But you brought yourself in the equation. I'm asking you the question.
I guess it's fun when he's working on his trees. Just watch what he does. I can help him.
You do bonsai yourself?
Yeah, the trees.
Cool. I heard there was a question somewhere.
At this moment, do you already have, or how clear is already your idea of the position of apex, both vertically and horizontally? And the same about the most recent branch of the back.
Just for the people in the back, the question is whether Ryan already has a clear idea on the apex and the styling of the branches in the back, and where there will be later on in the styling.
I don't. So this is a real conundrum of an apical structure right here, right? Like you have this central piece coming straight up, which is never ideal, but there's a lot of live dead interaction in it. And then you have this piece that moves off to the left, which actually exceeds the length of any of the supporting branches. So then this starts to like act like it wants to generate the asymmetry, which is totally possible. And then I have this piece that could lay back down over the top, and I'm thinking maybe I take this piece off. Maybe I gem this whole thing right here in the middle, which would be radical because it would push my apex all the way over here, but then I have this little T-Rex arm kind of like stunted back in the canopy right here. And this is where you can't have preconceived ideas of what a tree is supposed to look like. This is when we start to have fun and we start to make trees that we've never seen before in terms of the shape and the design that we have the ability to achieve. There's sort of an expected position of the apex to be right here. And anytime we have that expectation, I tend to rage against the expectation as hard as I possibly can. So I'm feeling like, you know, and I don't want Danny to get like super upset at me, but I'm feeling like, let's just go ahead. Let's go ahead and go for it, you know.
I'm very happy that you're giving this lots of thoughts and don't just jump in with both feet.
Yeah, you know, when you have ideas, as long as you have them thoroughly vetted, it's kind of commit or get off the pot. Now that did something very different to the tree than we probably thought would have happened, right? Now all of a sudden, and that was not so half-baked, right? I've been looking at it as I've been working through these other branches. Now I have the ability to move this piece back in here, which was underneath this piece here, which starts to give clarity and foreshorten this area, allow the foliage to exist in this deadwood without blocking it in front of it. But here's the biggie, is now I've empowered myself to start to utilize this to come forward and exist in the area with just a little bit more finesse. If that goes down, which I'm still thinking about book opening this piece, and I think that's probably the move, then I open the door for this big long piece to sit right in here and to kick the apex all the way over here, which is a very, very interesting design. If I didn't have the strength of the base, I couldn't commit to that big time move of the apex off to the left, because that is a huge amount of visual weight with these branches coming to the left. So I have to have that live vein, this big piece right here that holds all the living tissue. I have to have that rigid, strong base and visual anchor to push here, but because I have it, I could all of a sudden take a leap like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and tackle this area, even though I've been avoiding it, and the time has come.
Have fun.
Yeah, thanks.
I noticed there was a second question somewhere in this region, and now I see two hands, but this gentleman was already.
Coming back to the question before, to the family from Ryan, it would be nice to hear the answer from his wife. Maybe the audience here can learn a little bit, or you know what I mean?
Opened a can of worms. I am so sorry, but would you like to reflect on what it is like to share your life with a traveling artist like Ryan, and how does he manage to find the time to be around the house as well, and not just working on trees 16 hours a day?
Well, I'll keep it in the context of the boys. I mean, I'm also a working professional, so I just admire his dedication that we can both support each other that way, because I travel also and he travels. I think what the boys get to see, though, two things, observations I've had. This is my first exhibition ever.
How do you like it?
It's amazing. I'm learning so much about him that I didn't know. I'll tell you, I think the boys are starting to realize, my boys who I brought to this, who have only known him for several years now, to see the kind of dedication. And I think that it's not always easy when you're home at night and you want him to be home. But we know he's not dilly-dallying. That's for sure. Second observation I've had with the boys here today, especially in the front row, you know, in our culture in America, boys of their age, everyone loves to watch gamers play games. Right? You're not just watching YouTube, you're actually watching someone strategize in a game, and I find it so boring to look at because I don't understand it, but they are very engaged watching him strategize. you know? And so I think, I didn't expect them to be quite so engaged in the process, and they are. And I think there's some correlation there.
You know it is a disease, right? So just keeps on growing on you. You might be sitting alone in the future and there's only 4 guys working trees.
Well, I told Ryan I needed to prove I wasn't a groupie. You know, so for a few years I never came with him anywhere. But now I'm learning. I'm glad I'm a groupie.
So you started bonsai?
No, I think my role in life is to document the bonsai. That's probably
Right. Is it about bonsai or is it about family?
It's about bonsai.
Okay.
Ryan, you just like opened the upper part. Have you considered the same approach for the lowest branch that's swinging against the flow of the tree, so that you could possibly like swing it even more left? What I mean.
You're talking about here?
No, the other one, the one that snapped. Was it Deadwood snapped?
Well, they've all snapped, yeah. That one? Yeah. If I pulled it this way? I think I'll see how far this goes. So this is all part of that structural setting that's going to answer so much, and then the detailed portion of the work is going to clarify everything, right? So by the end of this, it should look completely disorderly, disarranged, and like I don't know what I'm doing. That means I've successfully accomplished a good structural set. And then when I start putting it together, you're going to go, oh, I see, got it. And that's the moment that I think all of the decisions down low will start to make sense. But there may need to be, because this is such a complex piece, which, let's see, I was talking to a gentleman from Ireland who said last time he saw me was in Salo-U in 2015, just before this demonstration, and I told him, yeah, and Salo-U was the last time that somebody gave me an obnoxiously complex Sabina juniper to do in like a 3 or 4 hour demo. Like I remember that because it was traumatizing. But these kinds of pieces of work, like I said yesterday in my demonstration, if you're here doing something that you wouldn't be doing in your workshop, as a bonsai professional, if you're doing it differently than you'd be doing it in your workshop, then you're putting yourself out of your depth, right? And it can be counterproductive for the tree. This is exactly how I would go through this in the workshop, just objectively solving one problem after another as I work my way up the primary structure of the tree, primary being branches that originate from the trunk, shape of the trunk itself, and setting and putting all of those big macro pieces in place so that I have the positioning to be able to form pads and maximize the positive to negative space ratio and relationship. So the discovery process on a tree like this, I have a and from the beginning when I established this angle, I knew generally what the tree was going to look like. I mean, I knew I wanted to push the upper physical load of the tree. I wanted to push it out off of the edge here. And we've pushed it out off of the edge of this space right here, that line in the trunk. So we've fully committed because we've got this big anchor. And then these pieces, I want them to sort of be moving in that direction. I want it to take on that personality. I didn't know this was the key to that. And now I'm at the point where this piece that I've book opened needs to bend correctly and work for me in order for this to all kind of have a happy ending. But we'll see how this goes.
I'm going to switch here to the middle, and Gerard, who is here helping out, is also himself a working bonsai professional. So maybe you can give us some hints also what's happening here, meanwhile.
Well, you know, first thing I wanted to say on the family thing, everybody, I've known Koji since he was a little kid, and many of you have known him, and he's a really happy, hard-working guy. But at 5:30 in the evening, it's home, there's 3 grandchildren, and that is when he's happiest. And seeing him have that balance in his life is always, it's just really nice to see that his priority is, no matter how much you love bonsai and compassion, the family is most important, and he knows that. And he's just like a happy guy at home with his grandkids, and that's so nice to see. You can see this tree is really becoming thin now, and they're going to start compacting this in quite a bit. And you can see the green is moving, shifting to the right more and more. This is very heavy, so this can reach quite far and not have that sense that it wants to go over.
I see a few drops of sweat. I heard a big crack. I'm sure something's
just more of the same.
Did you just break the top?
It's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. It is what it is.
Intentional breaking of the deadwood, so you have a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, intentional. It's, you know what, this is a conversation with the Sabina. It's what it sounds like. You know, some people speak real loud. Some people, you know, when you're in the United States, when you're from the West Coast, you say people on the East Coast are assholes. You know, they talk kind of, they're mean. Like, they're nice as mean on the West Coast is nice on the East Coast kind of a thing. When you're speaking Sabina, it's just, you know, it's a little more rugged, it's sharper, you typically tend to bleed, things break. It's that kind of a conversation. Everything in terms of the structure of the tree is as expected. And I thinned out the deadwood on this particular piece. I don't know, there you go, right there. So you'll notice that I thinned out the red here all the way down to the living. And you'll notice how that book opened. So the red opens up like a book, but you see the interior white tissue there, that's all the water conductive tissue. And the red comes all the way down. So where you see that white in the interior, all this on the right side here, this is all dead, that red stuff. So I'm just basically taking this live vein and I'm just kind of maneuvering it like this, and it doesn't have any impact negatively on the live vein. We tend to not baby, because I do have to tend to that in terms of its fragility, but we do tend to be a little bit apprehensive with juniper deadwood live vein and how we work it. I know a lot of people would be freaking out and probably putting cut paste in that opening and like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna die, I hope it lit. It's like, no, this is for a juniper, this is pretty par for the course. And as long as we're able to manipulate that without totally tearing that living tissue, and even if we tear it in half down the linear direction, parallel to the vascular bundles, it would still be okay. So it's just a matter of knowing those tolerances, material tolerances, vascular tolerances, behaviors, how to manipulate the live and the dead. If you put all those things together, that's a good sound piece of juniper work, and that's kind of what we had here. And I knew, I came in here like 2 hours early today just to sit with the tree, wrap my mind around what it was going to take. I knew it was going to be a little bit of a battle, but this is what a bonsai professional does. People say, what's it like to be a bonsai professional? And the answer is, yeah, you get the gnarliest pieces of material in the most complex situations, and then you figure it out and do what's best for the tree while maximizing the aesthetic of the entire operation. That's what it looks like to be. This is what it looks like to be a bonsai professional today.
And I'm just going to jump in because I know what the follow-up question could be, and we had that question yesterday already. How many of these trees are going to survive this, and how much is going to die? And we had a big discussion yesterday on what is happening in bonsai demonstrations, also in the Western world, where in Japan already for a decade or more people don't do these sort of demonstrations anymore. Trees are well prepared years ahead of time if you have to do a demonstration, so the tree is ready to be styled in a nice styling. The people here on stage, they do trees for a living. That bonsai on a bonsai, so they don't take the risks that are so big that the tree will succumb to the work being done. If they get trees where that sort of work is needed, they typically will say, well, either you get me another tree or I can't work on this. So they also know what limits the trees have and how healthy they need to be before you can do this sort of work. So all these trees have been selected a long time ago really to be worked. They were prepared here in Belgium for this show, or in Mauro's case in Italy, so that the tree was in optimal health and pre-prepared for this sort of styling. Now I saw a hand coming up somewhere here in the front.
Yes. Can Ryan explain the thought process? In one circumstance he put raffia on a branch, but in others he has not. And what goes into the decision-making process to raffia or not raffia?
Now Ryan, how do you decide whether a branch gets raffia or not, and at what point in the styling process do you make that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. So raffia's job, just understanding raffia, right? Raffia's job is to apply compression. So if I'm bending a branch like this, the worst bend that that branch could make is an acute, right? That's the breaking of the tissue that is under tension. Because as we bend here, the outer tissue is under tension. Now, a lot of times with junipers, we'll take away that heartwood on the interior. We take away that compressive force because that starts to magnify that compressive force, the application of force on that tissue under tension, and it causes that breakage. So we take that away, but even still, that still doesn't have that much durability to that acute break, and so the raffia is applying that compression on that. So I'm always applying raffia when I'm bending like this. Now when I'm bending like this, I have no tension, there's no tissue under tension. I'm working linearly with the flow of water. So even if I open up that vascular tissue, open it up, the water conductivity is still unimpaired through that tissue, right? And so I don't have to raffia that. In fact, I want to be able to watch that tissue open. I want to see how deep that separation goes so that I can find the tolerance and maximize that bend, and that's where raffia is counterproductive because I lose that visibility into that vascular system. So those are kind of those two situations that we're working through.
Well, it's been quiet here on the side of this Mugo wine. How are you doing?
So, let me explain a little bit of the process we've been so far. I can do it a little bit in Spanish and Italian, so there is some part of the crowd that does speak English eventually.
You do it in 3 languages simultaneously?
Yeah, entonces, como pueden ver aquí hemos inclinado la planta, ya he empezado a compactar la estructura, posicionar ya la primera rama, ya se ve un buen dinamismo de la línea del tronco con este gin que entra en un espacio que yo he creado aquí con el verde y crea una interacción entre la madera muerta y la parte viva. Esto es muy importante cuando trabajamos una planta, especialmente si tiene un tronco tan impactante. Necesitamos, y lo repito, necesitamos crear una conexión visual entre el verde y el tronco. Si no, solo es un conjunto que no engancha, no va. Esto es una planta muy dinámica y es necesario che il dinamismo fluya entre il tronco, lo gin, la madera muerta e la ramatura. Sì. Quindi, italiani, c'è qualche italiano qua? Quindi, Mugo delle Dolomiti, abbiamo compattato bene la struttura per posizionare il primo ramo nel lato dinamico, che è il lato destro, e stiamo compattando il lato del controbilanciamento, che è il lato sinistro. Noi abbiamo questa bellissima curva e quindi cerchiamo di mettere del verde, e così il verde, interagendo con i vari punti focali della pianta, aiuta a innalzare il valore estetico del tronco. Ok? English now.
English would be great, yeah.
So, now that we have all these focal points, we need to link every single focal point with part of the green in order to create a matching between what is the frame, which is the green, and the trunk of the tree. We have a beautiful curve here. We're going to put this green more compact, and we're going to elevate the aesthetic value of this curve. Here we do different. We have a gin, so a deadwood, so we create a negative space around this, and this will help to create almost a beautiful interaction between the deadwood and the pad. So the side of the dynamism, the spacing is a little bit more open to increase that dynamism. And the counterbalance side, that is the left side, is more compact, so the spacing is a little bit tighter. Does it make sense? Yes. German translation now?
Wat weer is dat Deutsch?
French.
Non parle français.
Je parle français un petit peu, c'est pas un problème. Ah, mon ami de la Réunion, tu ne sais pas que je parle français?
I know.
Ah!
Je sais.
Right, any questions? I see a few hands here. One here in the front.
Some of the carving looks like it goes against the grain of the Deadwood. Is that correct or not?
So Mauro, the question is whether you used an impressive carving tool to carve the Deadwood against the grain, and how did you create this?
No, this is all natural Deadwood. I used my friend Andres Bicocca. He's a good friend. He comes a couple of times a year in my place. And the last time he was in my place last October actually. We just clean, actually, I clean all the shady part that the tree already showed me that was dead. I didn't want to touch any part of the living tissue to not give any extra stress to the tree. You see, I only touched a little part here and I could cut it. All the rest was already dead, I just clean. And then Andres, with a couple of good hand carving tool, he was kind of exposing the inner center of the trunk that was already hollow. This is something that naturally happens on Mugo pines because the wood of Mugo is very spongy. In the mountain there is a lot of humidity. The wood, when some part start dying, the wood start absorbing moisture, and the inner part where there is no sap anymore, the sap is preserving the outer wood, but the sap is already gone from the inner part of the tree, so the tree gets hollow. This is very usual in my part of the Dolomites, where there is a good amount of moisture, that the central part of the tree gets naturally hollow. Even sometimes you can find roots growing inside, because in some of the part you can see here, these are kind of a little knobs. Those are roots waiting to grow in case the tree is getting some moisture and some soil while snaking on top of the rocks. And it's very usual that the Mugo natural air layer in the mountain. It happened to me that I found a big Mugo and some branches create some other trees and then naturally separate from the original tree, and you can make multiple other trees. For example, if I feel I don't need this part in terms of aesthetic, I can even air layer. It's very simple to air layer. I just put a moss, scratch the bark, and then the tree in 6 months is shooting out roots in the new moss. It's very, very easy to air layer Mugo pine as it is to air layer Sabina. All these trees that in our mountain, they tend to basically don't have any apical dominance, and they rastrera, Sabina rastrera means like snaking, crawling in the ground. They have this capacity of self-propagating by natural air layer because where they grow, the weather is so extreme that for a seed to survive and become a new tree is much harder than from an old tree kind of medusa around the branches and create sons and children all around the tree. I went when Sabina grows in Spain, and you see the mother Sabina in the center that is higher, and all around there are smaller Sabina. Sometimes they are still connected to the mother, and sometimes they already separate because they start having their own settlements. And the same happened with the Mugo plants.
I think that's really cool information. Who of you knew that you could layer Mugo just by adding moss? So for most of the people here, that was really, really new information. Any other questions?
Concerning the design, Mauro was saying I can tilt to the right or to the left, but he never decided that to the right.
Yeah.
What would,
I knew already. I said as an option that I was thinking before the demo, but I knew already I wanted to tilt to the right to increase this movement. That was, I was just throwing on a table and as eventual option, but I didn't want to waste time to just tilt up and down.
To show it then.
Yeah, exactly.
And the second,
follow up.
The second question was the top of the gin is now a little bit hidden by the going down. You put the pot. The top is almost hidden, right? Or from this point of view.
The top of the chin, you mean this part?
Yeah.
Probably because you are a little bit low compared, but from the main, from the main angle, there is a pretty good space around here.
Yeah. It's an optical illusion.
Now I heard somebody shouting out over there, yes.
Yeah, for Mauro. How do you take care, or do you take any care about these deadwood, hollow deadwood?
So Mauro, what do you do to make sure that this deadwood stays? How do you care for the deadwood?
So, I was a big fan of lime sulfur in my trees in the past, but actually I haven't found much difference of preserving the wood with the lime sulfur rather than just leave the wood aging by itself. Actually, my friend Milan showed me a product that is a natural resin from spruce that they use actually in his country, in Czech Republic, and it's pretty good as a wood preservant for the tree. There is this powder, and you look like cocaine, that not that you mix with pure alcohol. That you mix with pure alcohol and you add to the wood. That is actually what normally happens to the tree. It happened to me, especially on Scots pine. You know, you find branches that died years before, and inside there is a crystallization of the sap. That is the resin. That is basically a natural wood preservant that the tree push out in the dead part to self-protect from rotting. Mugo is not able to do that because the sap of the Mugo is not as gluey and running faster as the sap of the Scots pine. But on a Mugo we can add that product and preserve the wood. Also, this year I prepare a Mugo pine from my collection that I have for many years to show at the Italian National Show. And actually the moment we did the sandblasting on this one, we also sandblasted that tree that I worked at Deadwood many years before, only stretching. And I love so much this kind of a natural look that I'm not thinking of putting any type of lime sulfur to the wood. It's always good to have the wood exposed to air, light and direct sun. This interaction that actually happen in the mountain preserve the wood, in my opinion, much better than the lime sulfur.
And Mauro mentioned Anders Bikoka. I'm sure some of you have seen his work, know how he works, some might not have. What he does, he takes blunt woodworking tools and a hammer, and he hammers the woodworking tools in the wood, parallel to the grain, and then he lifts sections of the wood. What is left over is the natural structure, the natural grain of the wood, and after that he uses a sandblasting tool to remove all the fibers. In his opinion, it's much better for the wood, because if you start using fire, what's normally used, it can affect the structure of the wood underlaying. So he is a big fan of sandblasting the tree after you've done the deadwood work. And if you don't know how it works, I know his book is also for sale in the lobby, but it's well worth looking on YouTube, Facebook, for some pictures, some videos of the work that he does, because it's very different from the, well, European tradition of taking carving tools and just grinding away in the trunk and trying to find a natural line.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of justice to the topic, there is also another very good wood carver in Europe that is Will Badley. They have a different style, and for example, I had the chance to work with both of them, and it's important to understand their style, and eventually for myself, knowing what I want as a final result, use their capacity and their, technical skill in order to get what I want. For example, I use the wheel when I have very big stump of wood that they cut. I remember one of my big Scots with a stump like this, and Will was able to carve inside with the machine and give a new flavor to a part that, just by stretching the wood will look always awkward. So basically for the aesthetical part I like on the trees, I use Andres for the outer look a lot, because it's a very natural final look. When I have to work the wood from inside outside, not from outside inside, I use wheelbarrow. Just to give you.
It's always nice to have multiple techniques in your toolkit, so
It's very
you choose for each of
yeah,
the
it's very important. Anytime you have to pick the one that can highlight the work you have to do.
Thanks for the addition. Any follow-up questions? Gentleman in the back.
Technique to the wood with white power, not in the cocaine. But what's
So Mauro, if we're looking at the white powder from Czech Republic, what is it called? So if people look for it, what is it? It's probably a local product, but
I don't remember actually. We have to ask Milan, that is here, if he's not drunk somewhere. Milan knows very well the name of the product, and yeah, actually, yeah. But I actually don't remember the name. Sorry, Milan.
Maybe an internet search, white powder from Czech Republic?
The police will come straight into your house. Don't do that, sir.
And how is it going here with you?
You can see he's getting very close to the top now. This will get compressed in a little. And you can see how thin the tree is, and they've really been pushing, getting the branches pushed back into and shortening them, but also they're all being wired to push them tighter in. Can we spin it? Is it easy to turn? I'd just like to show you the back of it, so you can see it from
Okay.
And I want you to look at this branch here from the front, how nice it is. And when you get to the back of the tree, it's almost odd the way it comes down so quickly, but we're not concerned because it's at the back of the tree and it sits in such a nice spot.
Okay.
Okay, finish.
I would like to also hear from Koji. I know that a lot of people struggle with making the top of the tree look nice. It's always a difficult skill, and you're right at the point that you probably will start putting it together. Could you give some thoughts on how you go about the process of making the top of the tree here?
Okay. So, yes. So apex is most difficult part when you work on the tree. So basically, if this I make the front side with these branches over apex.
Yep.
If this branch is enough, lots of branches, I'm going to remove it, of course. But this side, this branch is not enough. So that's why we should use these branches to create the nice round dome shape. So basically, you should make decide from the front side first. Then we should put use the back branches to cover the top. But so only professional can do this.
In a way, we just have to pay very careful attention as you are positioning the branches to see how it is exactly done, and afterwards people can study how they are positioned.
But so this is in Japan. It is said that if we can easily make the apex, you are already professional.
So also
that's why. So it's very difficult. It takes 10 years, 20 years,
4 generations, I think, in your case.
That's all. Anyway. So and one of the important things to how much volume to make the apex. So depends on the tree.
So you say how much volume the apex?
How much? Yes. But so this is first branch, second, third. So maybe okay. This. But so we have better to make the big. Yes. Make the bigger apex as much as we can. Okay.
And you determine the height of the apex on the overall outline, the curve.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that I find one of the tricks on the apex when we get to the top of the tree, we don't make a top of the tree. We just keep bringing everything down. And as we get it all down, the little branches are used to create that dome at the top. And that compresses perhaps the tree another 10, 15 centimeters down rather than trying to bring a leader up. And historically you used to see that in the West they'd get a leader coming up and suddenly it's up here. But there's no top to the tree actually. All the branches are coming down and then a little dome is made just with a small green at the top.
Thanks for that addition. Let's not ignore questions. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Just the white powder idea, I thought about it, and Mauro said it's a natural resin. So my idea is you take dry resin from dry it and dissolve it in alcohol, and then you can use it. It's a possibility.
Yeah, one of the suggestions is that the white powder to conserve deadwood could be just maybe also used using Scots pine resin clumps and dissolving that and using that as
if you ever walked into a spruce forest, sometimes when spruce has some scratch or part that died, you find these pretty big knobs of resin that solidify, and actually that's probably the part that they're using to create that powder. I think is spruce resin, the one from Czech Republic and Milan.
Well, I've spotted one of the Czech bonsai artists in the audience, and at some point I'm not going to put him on the spot to come to the stage, but I'll sneak away from stage and I'll ask him and see what I can get an answer for you what the product is, because I think that was the main question. Then I saw a question somewhere here before. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question for Ryan. I was following your work online and how process. I see you cutting the wire and the branches with the same solution. And every time I think, Ryan, man, you shouldn't do that. You bunch your scissors, you damage your branches. So I'm curious now what kind of scissors is he using and what kind of wire is he cutting with, or is he just faded off for two scissors?
We're having a bit of a deja vu question here, because yesterday actually exactly the same question came up. People notice that Ryan is always cutting wires and branches and everything with the same scissors, and then go online, yeah, but you should do it because it ruins your scissors. And how often does he replace the scissors, or how does he handle it? And I know you have a very long, interesting story about how you work with your scissors, because we discussed it yesterday.
Yeah, sure. So the key is to find, I mean, not all steel is created equal in terms of tool production, which is, you know, I think still where Japanese tools are probably the reference for bonsai. But a lot of times the tools that have the hardest steel don't necessarily have the finest cutting edge, so they're not the most expensive scissors, but they have a durability in their steel that allows me to go ahead and cut the wire as well as maintain enough of an edge to cut the branches of a conifer. Now I'm not like fine pruning my Japanese maples or my broadleaf trees with these scissors. That's not, they're not that super human in terms of their ability to maintain some kind of razor sharp cutting edge. But as long as I'm cutting strong, substantial tissue on a conifer, it doesn't cause the tissue to swell anymore because there's like some kind of damage from the dull edge that I'm cutting with. It's hard enough steel that it maintains enough of a cutting edge that I don't get any detrimental impact from utilizing the scissors. But the main reason for this is just it keeps my hands in the trees, which means I can do work a lot faster. I mean, this is not a small scope of work that I'm working on here with this Sabina to get it done in the amount of time that we have. So the more that I can save a fraction of a second, you know, over 200 or 300 branches, that turns into minutes or sometimes even hours over the course of a tree that might take a couple days. So this was something that was ingrained in me as an apprentice. Mr. Kimura, my first week as an apprentice, gave me a pair of scissors that we did the same thing with. It's how he utilized his scissors. That's where I learned it. And it just became a habit that I haven't shed because it's such a productive way to be working at pace on complex material and not thinking about, you know, a handful of tools that I'm working through. I try to keep it very simple. I think yesterday I gave my bonsai survival kit list of tools to the crowd during the demo. But a very few number of tools can go a long ways when you're making trees, and keeping it simple is always, I think, preferable. Although, you know, I did say when we're doing more complex work, sometimes it's that arsenal of tools that allows you to have the right one, to get the right grip, the right cut, the right angle with the tissue and the tree and whatnot. So there's exceptions to that. I have probably every tool that's ever been made for bonsai somewhere in my workshop, but I only travel with a handful of tools anytime I go anywhere.
Hang on a second.
And meanwhile, we've solved the mystery of the white powder for conservation of Deadwood. The gentleman kindly came here and showed me a screenshot of the product name, and it's called Calafuna. And basically, it is ground up pine resin. So look for Calafuna or go into your local forest, find pine resin, grind it up. But I think just buying the product is going to be the easier way to get a nice clean product. Thank you so much for sharing. So that now that question has been answered. It's a commercial product. And in parallel, I've been given a question on this Mugo pine, and particularly the aftercare and the pruning of a Mugo pine once it is styled. Can you give a little bit of insight?
Yeah.
Have you done this before?
Full time. So, as you can see, this type of work is a little bit different in terms of final touches on the fine branches that I did yesterday on the Scots. On the Scots we tend more to subdivide already the finer branches. Here we just try to keep as many of the final we have to don't push down the strength of the tree. More green is more energy, and for the Mugo is vital to keep high the level of energy. There is a fungal issue that Mugo comes with from the mountain, that is tracheomycosis. It's a fungal issue that basically is in the Mugo already in the mountain, and that fungal issue works in the mountain to clean the Mugo place from weak branches, weak elements, weak trees around, and also as soon as the wood dies, start the process of rotting of the wood that will create ground to grow for the trees. So the problem is when we move the Mugo from its natural environment, and especially in the high mountain, the cold keep control the fungal issue that is on the tree. What happens in the lower elevations that for the amount of humidity and the heat, it can happen that if the Mugo is not strong, the fungal issue will start eating the Mugo. Because the tracheomycosis is a fungal issue that grows inside of the live one. So all of a sudden you see a branch going from very dark, vibrant green to kind of almost cooked. You see, it seems that someone put the branch into a boiler and he boiled the branch. It doesn't get yellow, but you get like lost totally this vibrant color. That is Takemitsu. It's a problem because now that we are collecting Mugo from so many years and we bring basically down the Takemitsu, and when we use a scissor to work trees, we should clean tools after the work because we can pass the disease from a tree to another, and that's also why now Takemitsu jumped into Scots pine and other conifer, and is a big problem. So we have a little bit to control that. The best way is to only style trees when they are very strong, and eventually if we're planning a heavy bending on the tree where we try to kind of break the fibers, is better on the Mugo to do in steps. First bending, then on the second or third styling, wire all the branches. Now on this one, I got this tree as strong as I could, as you can see, and what we're doing, we're not over-stressing the tree by cleaning a lot of foliage, by wiring all the leader branches. I keep a lot of the finer branches unwired because it's a unnecessary stress for the tree. I'm always scared for the tree because again, finding material like this is not very easy. It's possible, but I care about my babies.
Anything you would like to know?
This is Ryan. So Ryan, we see that you have shifted to detailed wiring of the fiber, right? Is the structural part completed?
Let me just repeat that for the audience. It's clear that Ryan is now wiring out smaller branches, and the question is whether the structural wiring, the main branches, are all now done and set.
Yeah, so as far as what I needed to know in the structural work to be able to start to design the secondary tertiary, I have all my questions answered and I've got the pivotal pieces. There's still some bigger structural pieces as far as like sort of intermediate structural, maybe not bigger structural, intermediate structural pieces that I'm going to have to wire as I move up, but I wanted to start to get a feel for the size of the foliar mass down low in terms of what I balance and create up high. And whenever you are styling, the defining branch that dictates the movement of the tree generally has the largest sort of pad formation on the tree. So this is going to be my kind of biggest, boldest foliar mass in this gesture of asymmetrical push to the left. So if I have questions that are unreconciled in terms of what I need up top, I can come back down here and I can start the process. And this is easily the most time-consumptive to stylistically figure out how am I going to handle the branches of this tree? What are they going to look like? How do the foliar masses kind of organize and relate? All of these questions are what I'm teasing out of the design right now as I'm working through it. But you can effectively say I'm done with structural wire, but I still have more structural wire that I'll have to put on to actually finish the tree. In this instance, and again, just understand that doing Sabina juniper of this scale with this kind of complexity and detail in a 4-hour demo is asking a lot. It's not that it can't be done, it just means it changes kind of the style of the demo to be a lot more sort of grueling, head-down work. But the product of a tree like this, if done correctly, is maybe the highest quality demo that you could do in terms of seeing a very close to finished iteration of the tree that then just has to mature and be handled correctly afterwards. So, you know, different than yesterday. I've always said, I think it's amazing that junipers are treated as demo material, because to do a juniper well, it's just so incredibly demanding, physically and technically and whatnot. But again, that final product payoff is undeniable. So a lot of unanswered questions up top that are going to come together very quickly once I get there. And you know, to some degree inside of the bonsai styling process, you have to have ways to answer your own questions and confusion, especially when, again, dealing with a very complex piece that has a lot of busyness and movement and mobility in the lines, to start to organize, right? So all of this is evenly distributed as a big, right, mass. Once I start to thin it out, and once I start to organize it, it starts to take on, I mean, this looks unruly. This is where it's headed. When I start to have these different layers through here, it's going to look very, very beautiful, but I needed to know how much of that I want to keep, and I didn't want to wire anything that I didn't need to wire, and if you wire it and cut it off later, it kind of destroys the continuity and integrity of your wiring combos of the canopy of the tree. So I just went ahead and started diving in down low here to start to work out pad formation and density.
Search for me and we'll go together. Okay. Yes?
Meanwhile, I'm going to also ask you to pay attention to what's here in the middle.
He wants to return again.
I can see a lot of branches wired, and I'm actually really curious, Koji, why are you slapping the tree's branches?
Just search me and we go to him
or
and collect the pots so you can.
Why are you hitting the branches?
I'm so surprised. Because it's almost finished wiring, so just clean up.
Just taking all the dead cutting pieces out.
Yeah.
Right. I was wondering whether you're looking for branches that you might have missed.
No, just clean up.
You can see how far over it was brought apart. You can see how before the top was somewhere around, looked like it wanted to be somewhere around here, and you've been able to bring it all the way over to here. Again, the weight of this deadwood has allowed them to really push the tree this way.
Will there be a discussion about pot considerations for the Taxus? Just like we
are you discussing pots for this tree as well?
Yes, of course. After finish, I explain something. Then you decide.
Okay. I'm not sure whether that came through to the microphone, but after the styling is done, there will be a discussion of what the work that was done, but also a discussion of what pot could go underneath, and then the audience gets to decide this is the best pot for the tree. I'm not sure whether he's committed to then actually also putting it in, but today I am pretty sure we're not going to be repot. We're just going to select what we don't want to kill it.
So now I finish wiring, design wiring, making Genk with my great team. So it's a bit early, but I finished this. So how do you think about this? It's good or not? So today's point to design this is to show this amazing Deadwood. So that's why I removed the left side many branches to use this only these branches to focus on this Deadwood. So when we design the trees, we have to how can I say? We have to make the trees alive. Make sense? We need, if tree has very interesting, important point, we have to show. It's a very good character of trees. So it's one of the importance. And wiring technique is very simple to make the branches. So just spread wires, the branches like hands. Very simple. When you decide the tip of the branches, you just spread like this. Okay. And so this is the first branches. Lower, second. So you have better to make so many layers, even the one branches. It's one of the technique to make the branches. So. And now you decided which pot is better. Okay. This time I cut more than 60%. Okay. So for this case, you should be careful about watering because I removed many branches. So you have to check the condition of the soil always. If you feel the soil is still wet, so you just spray the foliage, no soil, no roots. So it's important. After hard job, so the maintenance is more important. Okay. Question? Nothing. Thank you very much. Sorry, I have to decide which one. Maybe this time only this fit in this stuff. Okay. Yeah. Like this?
Yeah.
No?
The other ones are too small, I think.
Yeah. But which shape do you prefer for this tree? This is lotus.
I could see it in like a lotus or maybe even a mirror.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Sides maybe.
This is not.
Something like that shape, but maybe a little deeper.
Like more deep.
More deep, and maybe a little bit more narrow.
Why is it no good? Why is it no good?
No good because I don't like it. Okay. So the combination between tree and pot is if the tree is very strong, very strong power, so we have better to use a rectangle. So tree is more feminine. So we have better to use the lotus or other round shape or something. But so I prefer lotus. Because this maybe this one also good. This shape and bit deeper. Yes. Yes. So anyway, when I use pot for juniper and Taxus, so I often use lotus shape. It's my favorite. That's all.
Do you prefer the unglazed pots for your junipers, or are you like to experiment with more colorful?
No. So Conifera tree, we have to use a glazed pot. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. So, thank you very much. Two young professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No.
Mr. Koji-san.
Thank you very much.
You did a very great job.
Okay.
And of course you had some assistants also. You didn't do it you alone.
Oh, okay. Yes.
We have a new one.
New. Yes.
I think not so many people here do know Manuel Turpin. Oh. Who knows Manuel Turpin?
Yes.
No. Yeah. So, okay. This guy comes from l'île de la Réunion. It's a small island in the Indian Ocean, correct? And if you can imagine, it's only 9,000 kilometers from here. So that's one of the visitors who came from the farthest place. Yeah? Then we have Luca Tamburello. He's also a student from Koji. So how long did you stay at Koji's place?
So it's occasionally he comes to my place.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, his English is no good like me. So sorry.
Only
Italian, French.
Allora parliamo italiano, allora non ci sono problemi. Quanto tempo sei andato da lui?
Sono stato 3 volte.
3 volte?
Sì, e ho fatto 3 mesi ogni volta. Sì.
So he has been there different times. And Mr. Rainville
yes.
is also, I suppose, a student of the... No?
I'm a student of Koji's father.
Yes.
Yeah, but okay, I would say from the Koji family.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But since long time already.
Since he was a little boy.
So, that's all. Are there some questions about what they did? No? I think they explained it very well. So thank you very much for your attention, but we don't have finished. Of course, there are the others to finalize. They did it very quickly, and I think it's very well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.